Hi everyone, Nas here from Info.Tech.Journal. In this particular video, we're going to continue on our adventure in PowerShell to ultimately have a Java and PowerShell working tool. Last video, we already discussed basic get members. From get members, we can get properties and methods of a particular object. In this video, we're going to focus on variables and data, how we can work with variables and data and access their methods and properties and use that to further refine what we actually want to achieve. So without further ado, let's carry on. First of all, we're going to open our PowerShell console. So we're going to work with console today. So we're going to say PowerShell and we're going to run it as administrator. So we're going to work namely with variables. So how do we get variables? Or how do we get certain data types? So as an introduction, we'll be working with strings and integer values. If you don't know what a string is, basically string is like alphabets, like letters and words, and integers are just solid numbers, whole numbers. So if you were to say quotation mark hello, that is a string. How do you know that is a string? We've already learned it previously. We can use that in conjunction with get member. So we say hello and type it to get member. And it will show us all the methods and properties available. And it will say here, type name is a string. Don't worry about system. It's a bit more advanced topic. So we'll just focus on the keyword string. This is a variable type string. These are all the methods that are available for a string. And as you can see here, there's one property, which is length, and parameter size property, which is characters or chars. Okay. From there, we can also work with integers. So let's just say we pick a number. Let's just pick 9. 9 as an integer. So if you say 9 and you get member, it will say that it's an integer 32. Don't worry about 32 for now. Let's just focus on integer. And here are the methods available for an integer object or integer variable. So you see here all methods. There is no particular property for this particular integer. So if you're interested for integers, we can actually do some arithmetic operations as well. So if we say 7 plus 7, it'll give us 14. Or like 7 minus 5, it'll give us 2. We know that there is an arithmetic operations done on integers. If you're interested to see how these things get these values, we can also say get member. Member on this, and it will also tell us that it is an integer. So we've confirmed that the operation itself, when you pass it to get member, does not show us the operation. It shows us the get member of the actual results. In terms of this one, it's actually passing 2, which is a system integer, to get member, and it's being identified correctly as a integer. Okay, if you want to get more information, let's say if you want more information on a system string, what can you do to actually get more information? Similarly, we've done it before. We can actually just get help. So I'll copy this. I'll copy system string, and I'll say get help and system string. If you get help system string, it will actually show you all the applicable or relevant commandlets that actually produces a string as a result. So you can see here, there's a lot of strings that uses, there's a lot of commandlets that uses strings. You see, get verb is also a string, get command will produce a string, get help will produce a string. We've used this in previous videos. If you will scroll all the way down, that's a lot of commandlets, and also there's functions that will produce a string. If you also notice here, there's these few about, and these are help files. Let's say you're interested in what specific operations or what specific properties that are pertinent to a string. You can actually go into the help file as well to look at it further. Well, we can also perform this with arithmetic with our int32, system32. So let's say system32, and we want to know more information on the arithmetic operations. So we just take get help, system int32. It'll then produce the same thing. It will show us the commandlets that are producing int values, and it will also show us the about. And we see here the arithmetic operators. So you can actually go dive deeper in arithmetic operators. Similar, how we get more information on arithmetic operators, since they're help files, we'll just use get help to dive deeper in arithmetic operators. So you would think that the arithmetic operators might be simple addition, subtraction, but there's also other arithmetic operations that can be done. So if you see here, there's a lot of explanation and examples, but as you can see, with these operators, these are the operators that can be done. We can also do bitwise and not bitwise or XOR and so forth. So with that, now you understand that you can get help on the particular variable type as well. And if you're interested in the operations or any more specific details on an item for that object or that variable, you can actually just go to the about page to get more details on what can and cannot be done. Let's say you're interested to know just how many about pages or what are the available about pages help files that PowerShell can give you. So again, you can also use get help, and we know that the about pages, as you can see here, starts with about. So I would say about and use the wildcard to denote that anything after that is okay, fair game. So then produce all these about pages. As you can see, there's a lot of about pages. So from the first video that we made, subsequent videos to this video, I've shown you the basic and also the hidden gems in PowerShell. If you were to just look in PowerShell to get assistance in terms of help and help files. So that's just another trinket that is useful for us to build a solid foundation for our future scripting. Now we've done arithmetic operations. We have a basic understanding of how we get those string and int values by simply just typing 7. You get an int value. Okay, if you're not sure, just get member. I'll show you int value. If you say quotation single quote hello and single quotation hello, you get member. And this is a string value or system string type, a variable type string as well. It's whatever you call it. From there, let's just add a bit more. Now we're working with the basic of an integer and a string. So how do we actually access a property or method for an integer or a string? Let's say we have the word, length. Oh no, let's just make it simple. Car is a string. How do we access the property? As you can notice here, string has the property that member, and string has the property length. We want to access that string property. So car, if you want to access the string property, you encase the string with brackets, and you use the dot operator to give you access to the methods and properties of that particular variable. If you use tab, it will tab through, cycling through all the methods and properties that are available. If you notice just now, when it went to length, it did not give us a bracket. Because why? That means if it doesn't show you a bracket, that's a property. If you continue to cycle through, you will see a bracket at the end, this bracket. That means you're accessing a method. This is a simple way, a visual way to actually see what is a property and what is a method. So let's see, we wanted to access length just now. So we say length and enter. As you can see here, car is a length of 3. You can count it 1, 2, and 3. So car has a length of 3. So let's continue. How do we access the method? Simple enough. Let's just make this a longer. Car is blue. Okay, car is blue. Because I want to pick a method that separates the string into multiple strings. So let's see if we can find it here. And it should be here, split. If you can see split, split returns a string array, split the parameter of the separator. So we will tell it what is separator. So we're going to separate it with the spaces. So I'm going to say split, and I'm going to separate it with a space, and I type enter, and now you can see it'll separate it into three strings, 3 words. You remember now, it actually returns you a string array. A string array. Just to prove that to you, how do you access an array? Okay, if you don't know what an array is, basically an array is a collection of the same type of variables in one place. So basically, it's just think of it like a box which has a lot of boxes inside, and the boxes are numbered, so you can actually access them directly. So if you to access them directly, if you notice here, it's a square bracket. So you can actually just put a square bracket here, and let's say we will start at 1. It will return us is. If we say 2, it will return us blue. If we say 3, it's going to return us a problem, or blank, false, because there's nothing at position 3. If you go 0, it will return us car. Remember, when you're working with an array, it always starts with 0 for PowerShell. Just remember that if you're gonna work with arrays. So we verified that this is an array, and we've accessed the particular method to split the string by using the brackets to encase the string and using the dot operator. So let's continue on. We now know how to access the methods and properties of a variable by simply just encasing it with brackets and using the dot operator. Okay. Let's continue on and actually assign these values into a variable, or using variables to hold these values. Okay. To have a variable, you actually start with the $sign. The $sign. Okay, and the name of the variable. Let's just say we can say here word, and I'm gonna assign it using the equal sign, and I'm gonna say here 1. So now the variable word will contain 1, the string 1. So we'll say enter. If we want to retrieve the value that's held in that variable, we just say word, the $sign, word, and it will show us 1. If you want to check the property, simple enough, you can actually use the dot operator directly with the variable and access that particular property. So we say word length, and we know 1 is a length of 3. If you want to access the methods, similarly, it's the same thing. We say dot, and here, let's say we want to get the type. So if you say here, you can actually get the type. So if you look at get type, get type, get type, type, get type. It means it will return you the type. So we know word is a string. So we say get type, not get enumerator, get type, close. And it will tell us that this is a string. So that's another way to check the type of your variable. You can also do get member if you are. There's multiple ways to do it. Get member will give you additional information. If you just simply want to know the type of the variable, you just say get type. There's more ways to skin a cat. Figuratively, don't want to actually skin a cat, but then that's just a saying if you're not familiar with the saying. So let's clear the screen. Now I have my variable word. Word contains 1. And the type is string. We know we've accessed the properties already. We've accessed we've accessed the method, namely to the get type method. With this, when we looked at the type just now, word get type, okay, it is a string. I did not specifically mention that the word is a string. It simply does, let's say we say word, assign it with let's say 2. When we do this, PowerShell will look at the assignment and check what is the type here, and then will let the variable hold that type. So this is a string. The variable will now be a string variable. Okay. The variable will now be a string variable. This can be a problem. Let's say that we will say word, and now we will type 99. If your script was expecting it to be a string and only a string, and your intention was actually 99 to be a string and not the integer 99, this will actually cause some problems with your script. If you were to now say word get type, the type is now an integer. So you have to be a little bit more careful if you want to have a variable hold a certain type. So in order for us to do this, safely, we have to do casting or explicitly mention that that variable will hold a certain type. How do we do casting? Simple enough. Casting is just then done with the square bracket. We want to hold a string, so we'll say now the word variable will only hold strings. So if we say here, even if we do type 99, which is expectedly an integer, it will then convert that integer into a string. So if we say word get type, now we are sure that any value you type in will be a string. This is only because that an integer can be typecasted to a string. If we were to do it the other way around, let's say we will want to hold an integer, and the integer is like say a number, and let's say the number is 9, right? If we say number and get type, it will be 9. It's an integer. So let's say now we want to say number and make it hold 9, as in the word 9, type enter, it will tell us that 9 to type system int error. So formatting error. So you have to be a bit aware, and as you progress in your PowerShell experience, PowerShell experimentation or learning, you will learn these nuances. So if you want to make sure that your variable holds a certain value, you will have to put some casting on it. Explicitly mention that it is a certain type. Okay. Now we know that this is casted to an int. It will not hold the value 9. So those are the quick tips. Those are the quick tips in terms of how we get a string and an int, how we assign those strings in an int to a variable, how we get those variables into a certain explicit format with casting. Casting is done with the square brackets, as you can see here. And remember that string, if you pass in an integer, the integer will be converted to a string. But when you explicitly mention or explicitly assign a variable to an int and you pass it a string, it will not do that. It will give you or throw you an exception. So you have to just remember that this is the environment that you're working with. Let's continue on. Let's say you're interested to learn, okay, where are all these variables? What are the current values of those variables? Yeah. If you want to learn the values of the variables or what variables there are already inbuilt with PowerShell, it is actually inbuilt with PowerShell in a drive that is called variable. In order for you to get to that drive, you have to change your directory. The directory change command for PowerShell is set location. Set location. Set location is similar to dr, cd, if you're used to cd, which is change directory. So set location. So we're going to change the location to variable and type enter. And now we will change it to variable. Oh, sorry, I think I misspelled variable. So let's look set location again. Set location, variable, and dot dot. Enter. Now we're in PS variable. You don't have to create this in PowerShell. It is already inbuilt. So if you say set location to variable directory or variable drive, it will go to the variable drive. In the variable drive, it will hold all the current variables that you have. So if we say get child item, I forgot the dash, child item. Get child item is similar to dir or ls if you're familiar with the two. So if you say get child item, it will produce the list of all the variables. If you notice here, we have word currently as 99. We also have number. Let's look at number. Number is currently at 9. We also have some other variables. These variables are inbuilt to PowerShell, so you don't have to change them or make them. They're just there. For instance, you have error. Error will hold the latest error that you have. So here is cannot find drive. If you just scroll down, you can see there's other variables as well that PowerShell uses. Do bear in mind that the variables that you're looking here, especially the variables that you made or that we made, it's only there during the session. If we close our PowerShell and open a new PowerShell instance, our variables will no longer be there. For also, error will also be cleared, for example. So if you want to see that happen, I'm going to close my PowerShell instance or PowerShell console, and I'm going to open another PowerShell. I'm going to change my location, set location to variable, and now we're in variables. If let's say now I'm not going to say get child item, I'm going to say dir. If you notice that no, we don't have number or word anymore. And if you look at error, error is now empty. So you have to remember that it is not persistent. With variables not persistent, if you close your current session, it will clear off the variables. So let's continue on. Now we've looked already at how we work with strings and integer, how to verify their string and integers, how we assign them to variables, how we actually use and access the methods and properties specifically to that variable or variable type. And now we've looked at where is the location that all our variables are stored, with a reminder that if you close your session, all the variables that you made will be cleared or destroyed. Now let's continue. So far, we've looked at individual items from the beginning to the end, namely get process, how to access, get members for that process, and looked at the properties and methods available in a previous video. Let's combine the two together. Let's assign a variable to hold the output of get process. Okay, to do that, let's just name our variables again. Remember to start it with a $sign, and I'm gonna say the variable is get process. Okay. We're gonna now assign it, okay, the output or the outcome of get process. We're gonna limit it a bit, because if I just say get process, it's gonna be a bit long. Let's just say I wanted to get process specifically for Notepad. So I'm gonna open Notepad. Okay, we have Notepad open. So Notepad is here, and I'm gonna say the name, okay, of the process that I'm interested in has the word note in it. So I'm gonna say wildcard note wildcard. So in this example, this will get the output or the result of the process with note in it. And from here, all these results will then be stored in the get process variable. Enter. Okay, now we wait a bit. Okay, now in order for us to access the value that's stored in get process, we can just call it get process. And here you notice that the get process has this process in it, which is specifically for Notepad. This variable hold the value of get process at this particular instance, at this particular time. If we were to say get process and note, I'm going to copy and paste. As you can see here, Notepad is available. Let's say if I close this Notepad and run it again, I get nothing. The result is false. There is currently no process with the name note in it. But if we were to call the variable again, that is still there. This is something that you have to remember. I tripped up a few times while I was doing my assignments or my tasks, because I took the variable at a current snapshot, a current time, and I forgot that in order for you to get the latest data or the latest information or the latest output, you have to rerun it again just to make sure that the variable is holding the most current value of whatever commandlet that you're expecting to run. So just bear that in mind. So let's open Notepad again. Okay, open Notepad. Okay, this is Notepad again. Up, if you say note, now we have Notepad. But again, if you see, the ID is different. This ID is 28048. This ID is 40284. So in order for us to get the latest one, we will then reassign that variable to the latest get process. Now, if we say get process, the variable get process, we will see that the ID is now the same. Okay. Hopefully you're following along. Now we have this variable that has this value at this current point. What can we do with that variable at value at this current point? We can also now access the properties of this get process variable. So let's say if you were to say this one, we're gonna copy that and we're gonna paste it here, get member. We're gonna pick a few things. If you notice here, we have the script property CPU, we have all these other properties, ID, we have handle count, handle, and so forth. Okay? If you want to access this property, you have to remember that I'm getting members for get process, which is now stored in this variable. If you to check this variable and get the property of that variable, the members of that variable, you can see here it also holds its methods and properties. But if you look, this now holds the same thing. Okay, system.String process, all the aliases and so forth. System.String process, all the aliases and so forth. So you can see you can actually pretty much do whatever is here at the commandlet, and whatever the variable holding that value or output from that commandlet, which is get process. So let's say get process again. Process, oh sorry, we want variable get process. Okay, now let's say if you want to just get the process name. Okay, so process name, we can just say name. Okay, so name. Now it will show notepad. Or we just want the ID. Okay, we're gonna say ID. And we'll show you the ID. This gets a bit more powerful in terms of our script building. With this one, if you notice that now we have that variable. That variable now holds the output of the get process. We can now manipulate that variable to get the properties and apply methods from that particular get process. So this becomes a bit more usable. This becomes a bit more powerful in terms of us planning and designing our scripts in the future. So the building blocks are now building. So let's continue on and then actually do a method on the variable itself. So we have a method here. Okay, let's see what methods are available to us. The most easiest one to see is actually kill. Kill actually kills the process. So if I kill the process, this notepad application will also be exited out or be killed. So how do we access that method? The same way, we get process dot, and now rather than accessing the properties of that particular variable, we're gonna access the methods that is applicable. So I'm gonna say kill. Kill, because it is a method, you see the bracket. So we're gonna close the bracket and then we're gonna type enter. You will notice that this PowerPoint instance will then disappear. Now that PowerPoint instance is now gone. If we were to now get process and we want the name to be notepad again, you will now not see anything. That's how you combine what we've learned so far step by step in terms of achieving our end goal. So hopefully you find the video useful, and then I'm hoping to see you on the next video installation as we progress our learning building blocks to further get to our end goal of designing our PowerShell script. Thank you for viewing.